All right. There were two topics I have ever had a manager in a former TV newsroom of mine say we would never let anybody debate because that would mean we were endorsing psychopaths, essentially. Number one was climate change. Number two was vaccines. We'll get into that in a second because the woman who got me basically to that conversation with my boss is going to be here in 1 second to talk about how this Rogan podcast offer is now over $1.5 million, essentially after having RFK Jr. on the show talking about vaccine safety. And then everyone saying it was misinformation and essentially saying, okay, well, if it's misinformation, then if there's a pro-vaccine expert out there who wants to come on and debate, let's do the debate. And Rogan first offered 100,000. Elon Musk put up some money. I'm sure it was a lot of money, but I didn't see exactly what it was. Tim Pool put up some money. Like a bunch of people are saying now we'll chip in, and it's over $1.5 million. So is it actually going to happen? Because this is one of the most suppressed topics out there. And so far, Peter Hotez, who we're going to talk about in a second, who's been on Rogan before, pro-vaccine scientist guy, I think would personally love to be reincarnated as a vaccine if he could. I'm just all of your meals injected. I don't know. Anyway, so it's just a little fun. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about all that. He's been the number one candidate that people want to see because he continues to say that if you would debate somebody who questions vaccines, you're endorsing crazy people, just like my boss used to say. And so we'll talk about that in a second. All right. Last time I'm going to talk about this month, probably. So get in while you can. If you have ever been thinking about putting in money for the Rogan podcast and you are like, well, I'm giving away all this money to the Rogan podcast to get this debate going, so I probably should make sure the rest of my money is secure with precious metals, then this is a chance for you to do that and get all your questions answered while also supporting my work. If you go to morrowgold.com or 877-646-5347, it's all in the description of the video. You can just click on the link, or if you want to make the phone call and find out everything you ever wanted to know about an IRA or a 401k backed in precious metals, then, like I said, do that today and support my work. Keep interviews like this coming. This is one of the most suppressed topics. I just hit head on, unsuspecting, when I was a TV reporter, and I'm frankly shocked that we're talking about it now on Twitter, that we want to even have a debate. It used to be that nobody would ever put their name on wanting to hear questions about this topic if they had anything to lose, because they would be labeled a crazy Looney Tune too. And so you really took a risk on that. We're going to talk all about that. But again, morrowgold.com, 877-646-5347. Thanks to Noble Gold for supporting my work this month again. And they've, got a great reputation with Consumer Affairs, Better Business Bureau. So it's not just me. You can go find out for yourself. They've got almost 5 stars with both of those, Better Business Bureau and Consumer Affairs. They've been in business over 2 decades. And they are always giving away some kind of coin. So if you get in, you have a qualified IRA or 401k, you'll get something like that too. Remember, this is not financial advice. There's always a risk when investing, and there are no guarantees of any kind. Thank you, everybody. Let's bring in Bernadette, and let's hear what she has to say about all of this. So Bernadette volunteers with Informed Choice Washington. She's got her own radio show on Informed Life Radio, so you can go watch her if you're interested in this topic and you want to hear more. Bernadette and I crossed paths several years ago in Washington State because, just to make a long story short, I thought it would be interesting for us to cover a conference. They were bringing in some doctors to talk about this issue. I thought it'd be interesting for our station to cover it because we were covering the school vaccine mandate issue. And we were always having like a mom debate, or not even debate, but we would just get a soundbite from a mom at a protest. And then we would have the Department of Health come on and say how that person was totally nuts. And I just never learned anything. I genuinely wanted to learn, and I felt like I wasn't learning anything. So I thought, well, if we had doctors talking to each other, that would be something interesting. So like I was the first Rogan debate requester. Anyway, of course, it never happened. My boss told me I was never allowed to bring up vaccines in the newsroom ever again, because if I thought that was a good idea, I must also be crazy. And of course, I went to Bernadette's conference, and here I am now, totally down the rabbit hole. So Bernadette, what's your first thought about this whole? I'll bring up the articles and stuff, but $1.5 million now for somebody to debate RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan's show. Did you ever think you'd see the day?
I prayed for the day. I don't think I ever thought for sure I would see the day. It's very exciting, but I want to say, right now I wear a lot of volunteer hats for various nonprofits, and I'm just here as a mama bear today. It's just me talking with Allison. I have been researching informed consent, censorship of important issues, since about 2015. So entered this whole thing, like the whole thing meaning COVID, with eyes wide open, already sort of understanding the world of censorship that we were entering on particular topics. But it is, I tell you, it's so exciting to see that right now, because of COVID overreach, the policies and everything have been so absurd and so unfounded on science, and mismatching what people are witnessing in their experiential world, that some who are brave and critical thinkers like Joe Rogan are now like, they're beginning to explore and going, holy cow, all this time what I thought was truth, I had never actually researched. And so he's going down the rabbit hole and actually finally paying attention. And I got to tell you, Allison, um, eh, like in Washington State, doing some public records requests years ago, pre-COVID, we would find information with their policies from the Washington State Department of Health that says rules of engagement for individuals like me: do not enter into a debate, don't argue about the science, just nod politely, be respectful, and walk away. They were not allowed to engage. And how in the world can you have uh, real informed consent, medical freedom, and good science backing policy if you close down all debate? So to me, it's so exciting to see one after the other, these people come forward and say, we need to hear this. Yeah. I'm not hearing you, Allison. There you are.
I muted myself so you wouldn't hear all the side commentary.
Say hi,
My daughter wants to say hi. Say
Hi, sweetheart.
She says hi.
I'm coming to your house later.
She says you're coming to your house later.
Oh,
Okay,
I
well, we
would
better
love
get on
that.
an airplane.
Yeah. Or a long drive. We're not too
Yeah,
far
long
away from
drive.
each other anymore.
That's true. Okay, so here's this double talking vaccine scientist refuses to debate RFK Jr. despite $1.5 million charity pot. And that's the deal. I think the money was going to go to the charity of their choice. And again, Hotez has been on Rogan's show before. And I remember when he was on the show and he said, scroll down. I remember him saying he would never do that, because he would never do this debate because he feels like it would be platforming these terrible ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, long story short, all we've seen him basically come back and say in response to all this is like, Joe, you have my email, you have my cell phone, you can get a hold of me at any point. And see, he just keeps writing this blah, blah. I want to have that discussion, but he never says, yes, I will debate RFK Jr. And then when people in support of him choosing not to do so, because that would be platforming crazy people, he's like, thank you. So it's not going to happen, I don't think, with Hotez. Maybe it'll happen with somebody else. I'm not totally sure. Do you think this actually happens?
I really don't, unless they get somebody and they squirrel away for a couple of weeks or months in a room and really try to prepare them to figure out how to counter all the hard facts and published science and all the data that really is there. The reason they won't do it is because they really can't, since they're going to have to figure out the rhetoric. So far, they've gotten away with saying, we don't want to legitimize, what he's saying. But what this comes down to, Allison, is something known as the noble lie. And the noble lie was a concept introduced by Plato in the Republic, so long ago. And it's something to the effect of, in order to unify the masses, to get them to do something for the common good, everybody pointing in the same direction, you need to come up with some sort of lie, some sort of falsehood to get them to all believe so that they will go along with what you want them to do. This was, Plato introduced this, and it was supposed to be for the greater good. But when you have a government, when the United States decided the tool of choice for any infectious disease was going to be a vaccine. Allison, am I still on? Because you're completely frozen, and I feel like you're not. Are we still live? Hello? Did we get cut off? Hello, hello. I don't.
All right. Is Bernadette still here? Here
Hi.
she is. Bernadette. And
Hi.
my computer totally cut me out of here. It shut down. It just turned off on its own. Isn't that so weird? What did I miss? Did you just remove yourself from the stream?
I didn't know what was going on, so I just refreshed it and then came back because you were totally frozen. I couldn't hear you. Nothing was going. Is this a live stream?
It is live, yeah.
So hello out there to the people who are seeing us.
Yeah, I didn't even give you my disclaimer because I had no problems with my laptop, and I'm just going in to check on like how many people we have watching. Yeah, 160 on Rumble, and then another like probably 100 elsewhere. So yeah, I didn't give you my disclaimer because I haven't had any issues with my laptop. I was having all these problems with my other computer before I left Washington, but I guess the FBI finally caught up with me. So my laptop.
It's
I don't know what's going on.
Right. And what's also coming though is the EU, the European Union's DSA, Digital Services Act. Is that what it stands for? I don't have the notes right in front of me, but it's the European Union law. It's law, but it affects United States companies because of their reach. And it's all about everything that is a platform, a website, a host, anything that hosts or perpetuates digital media is caught up in this. And this week, the guy who's in charge of it, his name is Thierry, or I can't pronounce it, Thierry Breton. He's a Frenchman. He calls himself the enforcer. And he went to California this week to talk to the heads of tech industry. He's talking to Google. He's talking to Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, about their becoming compliant because they were notified on April 25th, that they were subject to this law. And they have until August 25th to come into compliance. And part of this Digital Services Act includes shutting down disinformation. So there's penalties for it. So you're actually breaking European law if your platform is putting out something they deem to be misinformation or disinformation, and it reaches European audiences, so it's sort of like labeling law, the companies are going to do it everywhere. I mean, how are you going to allow something only to stream in the United States and not reach Europe? Right? That can't happen. And it comes with a penalty of 6% of your annual revenue if you break this law. So August 25th is a deadline, and they're testing it now. I have no idea what that means. I've been talking about it for a while, ever since I discovered it. I mean, we could be looking at massive shutdown in August. I don't know exactly how this is going to unfold, but we saw how misinformation, disinformation, things named that were attacked and censored, and things taken down, and companies like MailChimp, who are on the CDC Foundation, they just deplatform people. Newswires deplatform people, and this is prior to these things being law, but them just cooperating. It's very concerning where we're headed. So yeah, who knows what's going on with your computer?
Well, did you ever actually answer the question about,
What?
do you think this will ever happen with Hotez? Probably not. And then I remember freezing like soon after I asked you that question.
Okay. Yeah. And whether or not I was still broadcasting if you froze, but no,
You
I
were,
don't.
yes.
Yeah. I don't think it will, unless, like I said, they really work to prepare somebody who could sound as if they're actually debating without actually engaging in the information. Because when you go read each of the studies, and you go see actually what's going on, you realize that that the whole vaccine issue is so much more complicated than they're willing to put out there. And I was talking about the thing known as the noble lie, that started with Plato in the Republic, that talked about you get to move everybody in a direction you want them to go for the good of society. You tell them a noble lie and you sell it to them. Well, when this noble lie began to be used decades ago, when our government decided that vaccines were their tool of choice to go after infectious disease, that's when we ended up with, the first lies that happened. And in the Federal Register in 1984 regarding the polio vaccine, they were altering the rules retroactively so they couldn't be sued for dangerous batches of polio vaccine. And they put in the Federal Register, this is their policy, any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine will continue to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. And then, Twitter files have revealed they did the same thing for COVID. Behind the scenes stuff revealed that, all of the 3-letter agencies were getting involved there and saying, it doesn't matter that this vaccine injury might be factual. We don't want you to spread it because then it might hurt uptake. Well, it should hurt uptake. It's injuring people, right? It has become something on steroids. So not only do you have the government wanting to censor facts because it undermines public health objectives, which is just to increase vaccine rates. And as Kennedy said, they don't look at long-term health outcomes to see if what they're doing is ultimately helping or hurting society, and it is hurting. But also, it's the largest industry on the planet, this vaccine industry. It's a moving up to $1 trillion industry, a cash cow. You get when the government mandates a vaccine, they help with research, they help with development, they help with storage, distribution, they mandate it, they market it for you, and then they give you a liability shield for any injury or deaths. I mean, and they want to inject people pre-cradle to grave. And Mary Holland once famously said, if they could figure out a reason to inject a corpse, they would.
So
And
Bernadette, real fast, let me just show this headline here, because you're talking about this multi-gazillion dollar, really public-private partnership, government, big tech / big medicine partnership.
Yes.
And yet when we hear people like Dr. Hotez discuss this, they say the extremists like you are the, the multi-gazillion dollar front to science, and that it's a very dangerous development. But at the same time, he's being stalked by people who are coming after him after these billionaires urge him to debate RFK. And I just, want to bring people's attention to this article in Nature that he wrote, where he essentially talks about how he's concerned that, quote, anti-vaccine activism in the US is going to reverse global goals. I mean, he puts it as a question, but it's not a question. And then he makes a case for, at the end, basically why we need to be working with the State Department, Homeland Security, Justice, Commerce, essentially because this is costing human lives on scales that exceed global terrorism. So he's saying anti-vaccine activism now costs human lives on scales that exceed global terrorism. So he like wants to use the State Department, the Justice Department, and come after people who are questioning vaccines. And at the same time, he's like, I'm being stalked, by people on Twitter after Joe Rogan says, I want you to debate. I just think it's interesting. It always gets turned on the skeptics, or the multi-billion-dollar front to science. Not what you described.
No, exactly. So on the one side, the people that they label anti-vaxxers are and say are vaccine hesitant. I call it medical due diligence. It's all just medical due diligence and fully informed consent. And our side always says, well, here's this study and here's the data. Go read it. The other side says, you guys are liars. You're killing people, right? They won't come to the conversation and let's just really look. And they won't do that because they know that their side cannot sustain the debate. And when these products were first introduced decades and decades ago, we knew nothing about the immune system, and there's so many things about the immune system we do not understand. And we didn't know that the lymphatic system was connected to the brain. We didn't know about the gut biome. We didn't know, many of the building blocks of real immune health that we know today. None of that is incorporated into vaccine science or into the vaccine products. They have been, when the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed, it's written now in our in all of the rulings that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. What's really the big argument is what is the volume, the level of unsafeness? They'll acknowledge they meaning the pro-vaccine people, a tiny bit of things that saying it's unsafe. But if you look at the real data, the risk far outweighs any potential benefit. And this is saying from somebody who's gone down the rabbit hole. Like Bobby Kennedy Jr., I do not want anybody to die of an infectious disease, but I don't want anybody to die or be harmed by a product targeting those infectious diseases. And this science fully shows that natural immunity is vigorous, that you can support natural immunity to make people more resilient, and that early treatments with safe and effective early protocols, most of them nutrient-based, support them, avoid the drugs that suppress your immune system. There are other ways to treat infectious disease, but that talk of that undermines the pharmaceutical industry. So no, there's not going to be a debate. And I feel like I'm not going to repeat everything Robert F. Kennedy said, although I'm so tempted to. It's the most brilliant 3 hours. He just went through, in that Joe Rogan interview, he went through the foundations of why people like me and you are now standing up. Because once you read the facts and you realize how you've been lied to, you really get angry, right? And so that's all we want. We just want a fair platform, but I don't see it happening. But I do believe this is the beginning of the end of the terrorism that they have used to push the vaccine agenda. But Allison, you said something in the very beginning of this show. You said that there were 2 topics you couldn't discuss that, on TV. One was anything critical of climate change theory, and vaccines, anything critical of vaccines. But are you aware of how very tied those two topics are, how they go hand in
No,
hand?
I am
Okay.
not.
Have you gone down the rabbit hole of a term called One Health?
Yes, that I'm a little bit aware of. Yeah.
Okay.
But not an expert by any means.
Okay. So I'm going to read to you from One Health at the World
Okay.
Health Organization, but just about every state has a One Health government office or agency, and the major universities all have them, and they've been in existence since at least 2015, if not before.
Hey, Bernadette, since you
Yeah.
teased that, before you do this, go everybody
Okay.
get a glass of wine before Bernadette ramps up and reads you about World Health or One Health. Go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get your 50% off your amazing Malbecs, 50% off shipping. Because you know you're sitting here thinking, is what Bernadette's saying really true? I need a good glass of wine to get through this. And what's the next holiday? July 4th?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we even celebrate July 4th anymore? I don't know. So
Yes, we have to. You know why, Allison? We get your wonderful wine to celebrate this great nation. We have a great nation. We have a great foundation. All we need to do is return to the roots, return to the Constitution, and reclaim our great nation, and begin all of us standing up and becoming citizens and stop being complacent. Yes, darling.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
AllisonWinePromo.com. You say that?
AllisonPromo.com.
Yeah, that was
Yay!
okay, so yeah, thanks everyone who goes and gets great wine at a good price for a good cause. Keep people like Bernadette coming on. All right, Bernadette, take it away. I'm going to mute myself so people can actually hear what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. So this is so important. And so One Health, I'm going to be reading here. One Health is an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems. It recognizes that the health of humans, domestic and wild animals, plants, and the wider environment, including ecosystems, are closely linked and interdependent. While health, food, water, and energy and environment are all wider topics with sector-specific concerns, the collaboration across sectors and disciplines contributes to protect health, address health challenges such as the emergence of infectious diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and food safety, and promote the health and integrity of our ecosystems. By linking humans, animals, and the environment, One Health can help to address the full spectrum of disease control, from prevention to detection, preparedness, response, and management, and contribute to global health security. So global health security. So, at the very beginning of COVID, what we were seeing is a lot of people saying this looks like a lab leak. This looks like something made in a lab. But Tony Fauci and those people were saying, oh, no, this is because of global warming, because of bats, because we're living too close to nature, because of all of this. They began, and you can find all of these papers written that said, we're going to see, in fact, it's in a bill that luckily has not yet passed in Washington state, saying that we have to take control of climate change because it's ushering in more pandemics. It's, the whole thing is tied. So all of our freedoms, the surveillance, the tracking, the digital passport saying you have to be vaccinated, all of it's being unified by telling us that humans are doing such a brilliant job of polluting the earth, which we are. See, the best propaganda has a lot of element of truth in order to get you to go along, that we're polluting the earth to the degree it's going to cause mass disease. We must fear a pandemic. We must fear disease. We must obey. We must be compliant. We must take up these vaccines. It's all tied together. And so climate change and fear of disease and pandemic are intimately linked. And that's why they fought for so long to admit that the SARS-CoV-2 virus did escape from the Wuhan lab, and that it was funded by the United States, the gain of function, all of that. Now it's mainstream being written about, but they don't want to go there. They don't want to admit it because everything that's coming next, the next pandemic, as it were, is that they're pushing, and then, you know, telling us that we have to get rid of cows, we can't eat meat anymore, we have to get rid of all fossil fuel burning vehicles. All of that is tied together and being put under the topic of global health security. And just as Hotez had said, he wants to bring in the National Guard and everybody. He wants to criminalize anybody who dares counter the narrative. And so I am thrilled that people all over this world, with all incomes, but these billionaires who have some power, stepping in saying, let's have the debate. Let's do it. Let's go for it, because it needs to get out there. We need all of this exposed. And once you see it, you know, you saw with Joe Rogan, once he began to see what he didn't know and realize he had assumed things. And then once he saw CNN, like he had COVID and he took ivermectin, and then CNN.
I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna let you keep saying that in a second, Bernadette. Hey, everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, we are going to be on the other platforms only, and really appreciate your watching here. Go subscribe to my editorial board, $5 a month to go one-on-one with the most censored people on the internet. And I don't know why you're still watching on YouTube, but that's okay. We